Coffin of Queen Elizabeth II there, draped with a royal standard, and that right there is the imperial state crown on a velvet cushion and a wreath of flowers. Let's bring in CTV's Anne-Marie Medawake right now, who is right along the procession route at Buckingham Palace. And Anne-Marie, quite an astounding scene here as we see that imperial crown on the coffin glimmering in that sunshine.
Yeah, you mentioned the sunshine, Omar, and one of the people in the crowd, they've been traveling 8 hours total to be here today, pointed out, saying the sun is determined to come out for the Queen. The moment, there are thousands of people here, and the moment the music started, it fell silent. And that's the scene right now as the coffin passes where I'm at. It's almost like people are holding their breath, collective breath.
And Anne-Marie, I can tell you, even where we are, there is a series of media tents, and everybody has stood up in this moment to pay respect to the Queen.
Omar, I don't know if you can hear me.
I can. Go ahead.
You know, I mentioned earlier I was speaking with Andrew Morton about those images of seeing the family walking behind a casket. And now that it has just passed, you can see people. I said that they were holding their breaths. You can see them exhale, turning to one another, looking at each other in disbelief. A few people wiping tears from their eyes. Of course, this is after they've brought down their phones to record this moment in history that they've all traveled to share in together. It is unbelievable on the streets of London. I mean, this is born, this is where she became queen. Today, this is a country that has turned out to pay their respects and to say goodbye.
We caught a glimpse earlier there of King Charles III, of the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, Andrew, Edward, and I believe behind King Charles is Prince William, the Prince of Wales. Thank you, Rigo.
Oh, and applause has broken out.
Yeah.
This route, as we mentioned, is going to be taking about 38 minutes, and it left right on time, didn't it, Afia?
It did.
It was military precision,
you
2:22.
know? If there's one thing our military is good at, it's precision. And, you know, with the police officers on horseback in front, that was, I'm not often speechless. I was hoping you wouldn't come to me. I'm not often speechless, but that was one of those times where I was. What a sight to see, Hugo.
So here you see the royal family. You see the new king, the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, Prince William, the Duke of Gloucester, cousin of the Queen, Prince Harry, Vice Admiral Sir Timothy Lawrence, Prince Andrew just coming into view, and Peter Phillips, son of the Princess Royal. They are the immediate family members following the coffin. And the coffin was preceded by the people who are really closest to the Queen. I spotted her page there, very tall, Paul Wybrow. These are people who saw her every day. What it must mean to them.
And then in the cars behind, you have Camilla, Queen Consort. You have the Princess of Wales as well. And then you have Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, and the Countess of Wessex also. So they will be in cars following behind.
And you probably just saw there a couple of minutes ago that the king was wearing his full-day ceremonial uniform with the rank of Field Marshal, and was carrying his Field Marshal baton presented to him by the Queen when he became Field Marshal a decade ago in 2012. And he's wearing a variety of medals.
I think we've been misinformed by these briefings. I think he was in RAF uniform, but I couldn't be wrong.
We'll have to check that.
We'll have to check it. He is, of course, not only a Field Marshal, but also a Marshal of the Royal Air Force and an Admiral of the Fleet. We'll have another look at him in a minute.
But we do know, in terms of the military medals that he is wearing, that those medals include Canadian Forces Decoration medals as well as medals from various other countries, such as New Zealand.
And of course, the gorgeous wreath of flowers. We know the wreath that we saw earlier on in Edinburgh was from flowers and herbs from the garden at Balmoral. On this one, we have white roses. I think we've got dahlias as well, and pine from the gardens of Balmoral, and lavender and rosemary from the gardens of Windsor, excuse me, on that beautiful wreath. Very simple, isn't it?
Let's go back to Anne-Marie Medawake. Just a couple of seconds ago, Anne-Marie, we heard this applause as the procession passed by. I believe you've got a guest with you. What are they saying?
So, Graham, I do. This is Graham. Omar, this is Graham. Graham, you were just there right against the barricades. Tell us what you saw and how you were feeling.
I mean, it was such a emotional feeling and of quiet and calm as she went past. Lump in the throat, felt a bit trembling, but realised it's the last journey, that we're never going to see her pass here ever again. So it was very serious and amazing how everyone was silent, and there's tens of thousands of people here. For them all to keep so quiet was amazing. It was a strange feeling, but enjoyable in a funny way.
And how did you feel once the coffin and the family had passed?
Once it passed, I don't know, I just felt a release, a body release, and realised now it's Charles's turn to take over. So there's a bit of a strange mixture of feelings, because Charles is ready for the job, I think. He's ready for the job. He's been preparing for a long time. So I think he's ready to take the helm now. But it was sad seeing the family walking behind. Very sad.
You know, when this first happened just 6 days ago, now, or just almost a week ago, people kept saying it doesn't seem real. I can't believe it. How does it feel now? It's
real now. It's real now. It's hit home now. That's hit home. We travelled 5 hours to get here. We've waited 4 hours to see it, and that's like a conclusion to us. It's happened, and we've seen it. We've witnessed it. Strange feeling.
I can't imagine. You know, where you and I are standing, we are just a bird's throw from Buckingham Palace, from the balcony. We will never see the Queen there again.
I know, it's sadness. What a lady. I mean, around the world, what a lady. Everyone to see. She's the best lady in the world, or was. Anyway.
Graham, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Omar, nice to meet you too. Those are just some of the thoughts. You know, Graham mentioning that release that we were talking about, that exhale as the family in the coffin passed.
We saw the image there of the two brothers walking side by side in almost perfect unison, I would say. A lot of people will be thinking back to 1997 on this day.
And so must they be thinking back to 1997. I remember the images so clearly, and especially because Harry was so short then, and they both looked so young and so vulnerable to be walking behind their mother's coffin.
And he actually said, Harry, that nobody, no child should have to publicly walk
behind their mother's coffin. And, you know, they didn't want to do it. Prince Philip walked with them. And I was completely reminded of that moment. And to see these two young men so grown up, and also it was good to see them walking side by side. I know a lot has been made of the fact that Prince Harry isn't wearing his military uniform. He's wearing a morning suit. He is wearing some of his medals, though, because he isn't a working royal. Prince Andrew's not a working royal either, so he's not in military dress. And, you know, a lot of people have said perhaps Prince Harry an exception should have been made for him because of his closeness to his grandmother. The most important thing is that he was there, and that he was part of this procession with his brother, with his father, and that's what we should focus on, that he took part in this incredible part of the transition, and this incredible part of us saying goodbye to his grandmother.
And you may remember that at Prince Philip's funeral, they put Peter Phillips, the other grandson, in between the two, whereas this time the two brothers were walking side by side. And yes, the King is in RAF uniform. And he has many to choose from.
There's over 1,000 members of the military forces taking part in this procession today, which is truly incredible.
And Hugo, walk us through some of what we're seeing here. In front of the coffin, there is the mounted Metropolitan Police, then the dismounted detachment of the Lifeguards, and the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment. Yes, absolutely. And then, of course, there are the various figures who are quite important, you know, like Silver Stick in waiting and the Field Officer in Brigade waiting, Major General commanding the Household Division. And then, of course, the household of the Queen, I mentioned earlier, you know, the Director of the Royal Collection, the Controller of the Lord Chamberlain's office, he was at Northolt yesterday afternoon, the Master of the Household, who, Sir Tony Johnson-Burt, who was very much in the bubble, you know, what can he be thinking today? And the Keeper of the Privy Person, the Private Secretary, Sir Edward Young, who has been the Queen's main advisor for several years now. Then the more ceremonial people like the Master of the Horse and the Lord Steward, and then, very touchingly, the two pages and the Palace Steward. And they are literally the people who are with the Queen every single day. Athea, we know that the Queen's coffin was overnight in the ballroom of Buckingham Palace, and what a special moment that must have been for the royal staff, who
Absolutely
knew her better than most.
And needed that opportunity to say goodbye. And the ballroom particularly looks over the gardens behind Buckingham Palace. And we know she loved to walk in those gardens, so it was lovely that she was at a place that she loved so much overnight. But you're absolutely right, you know, all these people that you've talked about, the Master of the House, the Queen's pages, the Palace Steward, the Keeper of the Privy Purse, the Private Secretary, it's really, really important that they have their private moments to say goodbye, to process what has happened, because she, of course, we know she was at Balmoral, she wasn't at Buckingham Palace when she died. The staff at Balmoral, I'm sure, had their opportunity, and it's only right, actually, for the staff at Buckingham Palace to have their opportunity to say goodbye, and some of them having their opportunity to take part in this procession. And that's priceless, isn't it? To honour your Commander-in-Chief, as she's been called, honour your boss in some way. A very serious, of course, serious-looking Prince Harry there.
And of course, we've seen not only Sir Clive Alderton, the Prince of Wales, as King Charles, as he now is, Private Secretary, but also Sir Edward Young have been very much with the new King, both of the Queen's former Private Secretary and the new Private Secretary, steering the King through his affirmation, if you like, as his visit to Edinburgh and his visit to Belfast yesterday.
Now we can see some of the military service and some of the police officers on horseback. Now, these horses have actually been trained so as not to react to the sound of the guns when we'll hear them later on, to react to the sound of Big Ben, or to somebody jumping in front of them, to any sort of noises and surprises.
So they've been exposed to loud sounds before today.
That's the level of preparation that has gone into this element of the transition between Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III.
It's worth pointing out that presently the procession will turn into horse guards. I believe, of course, it was on that corner in 1981 that you really saw one of the most fantastic examples of the Queen's courage when a blank was fired at her as she was riding to the Trooping the Colour ceremony. And she's a very expert horsewoman, and she just dropped her reins briefly. Somebody rode up beside her to assure her that no one had been shot behind her, and she went right through that parade as if nothing had happened and rode past the very same spot. And I remember watching it on the television, and we weren't told what had happened until the news later on. We realised something had happened. It's very serious. But again, of course, you see, as you were saying, if you have the training of the horses was very important. They were, I mean, the royal family invariably did ride police horses, and got to know them in that way. And they were, as you say, exposed to all sorts of noises and things to make sure that they behaved properly.
Let's go to CTV's Paul Workman, who is outside Westminster. The procession now, Paul, by my count, is about 18 minutes away. What is it like where you are right now?
Well, of course, the streets are full around here. You can't see it where I'm actually standing at the moment, because it's closed off, and this is where people are going to be coming towards the Great Hall later today, when they can finally pass in front of the coffin. I was going to say, Omar, this is a very extraordinary, moving parade through the streets, if you like, but it's also quite anachronistic, it seems to me, like something out of the 18th or 19th century. You have the gun carriage carrying the Queen's coffin, led by horses. The uniforms are extraordinary, but it also shows the depth of history in this country, that there is, you know, this very important element to the royal family. And I think the British people here would be totally disappointed if these traditions did not carry on, if they didn't see such an amazing outpouring for the monarch in this country. So it does feel really quite, you know, old-fashioned in a sense. The dirge through the streets of the city so that people can stand and watch their queen and say goodbye to their queen. Really quite an amazing send-off, if you like.
Afia Hugo, anachronistic is the term that Paul used, but in some ways also this was a woman who was able to build a connection and a link with all generations. And we know, you know, you look at productions like The Crown, for example, on Netflix. It is now back in the top 10 as the most watched series. Are you a fan?
Oh, the hugest fan, the hugest fan.
But it shows you her relevance and how she's been able to persist through these 7 decades.
Absolutely right. And I think you're actually seeing that in the makeup of the crowds. Even though we had shots of the crowds there's lots of young people there. There's lots of people from younger generations who have turned out to be part of this moment. And I think that was something about the Queen. She sort of transcended generations. She transcended, you know, celebrity, because she was the most famous woman in the world, but she was relevant to so many people. And yes, things like The Crown, things like even magazine features. She's appeared in Vogue. Camilla's appeared in Vogue. The younger royals like Kate and Meghan are often written about on the fashion pages. You know, there's different ways of the royal family and the monarch staying relevant, but definitely Queen Elizabeth had the knack of doing that. And I think that's part of the magic of the Queen that we've spoken about before.
Well, these are the ladies of the royal family who are coming, again, of course, absolutely on time, to take their place in Westminster Hall, to be there before the procession arrives. That's to say, Queen Consort, as they call Queen Camilla. I don't know why they didn't call her Queen Camilla. I think they should.
I think they won't call her Queen Camilla until actually after Queen Elizabeth II is buried, I think.
I hope you're right.
Yes.
And anyway, also, of course, the new Princess of Wales,
yes,
and the Duchess of Sussex and the Countess of Wessex.
Yeah.
And other members of the royal family will also be waiting in Westminster Hall. The Duke of Kent and his brother Prince Michael, and I'm sure Princess Alexandra will be there too, probably.
There's such a look of duty on the Princess Royal's face as well, Princess Anne, who has been with her mother every step of the way.
And she is, I mean, the epitome of duty. She clearly has got that from her mother. And like we discussed, or have been discussing all week, she's so private, so fiercely private. Keeps her life very guarded, except when she's on royal engagements. You know, she keeps her family life very private. But clearly she is dedicated to duty. She talked yesterday in her statement about the privilege and the honour it was to be able to take up the mantle of being the one person actually who has been with the Queen pretty much consistently since she passed away, and what a great honour that is. I love that she's front and centre, the hardest working royal, perhaps a secret weapon for the royal family, especially in Scotland.
And what a touching statement we received from her yesterday.
Yeah, really beautiful. You know, she talked about the honour and the privilege it was to be with her mum in the past 24 hours of her life, and also to be accompanying her. She thanked the people for and acknowledged the outpouring of grief for her mother. And then the last line she said, you know, to my mother, the Queen, thank you. A truly beautiful statement she released.
Let's go back to Anne-Marie Medawake outside the palace, and certainly, Anne-Marie, not a scene that any of us we'll see again in our lifetimes.
Unbelievable scene. Omar, I'm here with Alison and Rob. Alison has traveled 2 days to be here. Rob, her son, lives in London. Each of you here for your own reasons. Alison, there have been royal events before that you could have come for. Why is this the one you chose to be at?
I think this is special because the Queen's always been in my life. My father played the bagpipes at her 21st birthday celebrations in Cape Town and always spoke of how beautiful the young princess was. My parents were both very fond of the Queen, and fortunately they're no longer with us, so I felt I had to come today just to be part of this. It's just been magical. As she passed by and the sun shone on the crown, on the coffin, it was just unbelievable.
It really was. What were your thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, it's part of a pretty momentous day, really. It was quite magical, like Alison said. It was, yeah, it felt very surreal seeing the whole royal family. I mean, I think 99% was level seeing through a camera screen, so seeing them here today, it was quite surreal. But yeah, it was a really momentous day, and it was a long wait, but it was worth it in the end. Yeah,
you're really part of history.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely never see a Queen again in my lifetime, that's for sure. So yeah, happy to be part of it, and yeah, glad I made the trip.
Yeah. Alison, talk to me about how you were feeling. The music started and the band started to play and you could feel it in your heart.
You don't expect to be so emotional about somebody you don't know, but we knew her because she's been part of our lives for so long. And as they came round the corner and the band was playing, it was just a huge wave of emotion. You could hear a pin drop for a start in the crowd. There's absolutely not a sound as she passed. No, it was just really emotional, yes.
How are you going to mark the rest of today?
We're going to the pub now for a drink.
A toast to the Queen?
A toast to the Queen and a toast to our new king, yes.
Yeah. Toasts. And you?
Yeah, a couple of pints. Yeah, I think so, yeah, for sure. Yeah, 1 or 2 on a Wednesday. Can't go wrong.
All right, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much, Alison and Rob. Yeah, just some of the people who were able to stand, who waited for hours. You heard about their journey, and just to watch it happen. And again, Omar, that moment of silence as they just watched their Queen go down the mall and the royal family walking in behind was just something that they have explained to me they will never, ever forget, a real moment in history.
And that beautiful scene of applause, too, as soon as the Queen's coffin passed by. Let's go to Nick Dixon, who is in Trafalgar Square. Nick, I'm sure an equally powerful and emotional scene where you are.
It's a really interesting scene, in fact, where we are, Omar, because right now there are no big screens in Trafalgar Square, but we have a small screen showing our broadcast right now. We've got a crowd of people gathered behind us watching this CTV special coverage of what's happening here. So it's kind of an interesting atmosphere we've created here. And we found a transplanted Torontonian, Harris Luxier, joining us here. He's been watching along with us. Harris, why did you come out today? What were you hoping to sort of see or hear?
Well, I think it's a bit of a culmination to a long week. I started today at the end of the queue, or where they think the end of the queue will be, and just had the opportunity to think about what would inspire someone and what would lead someone to be willing to stand there for 30 hours. And I think trying to figure that out means a lot for what it is to live in sort of the after the empire and,
there seems
and the democracy that's left.
There seems to be a connection to the Queen Mother herself, Queen Elizabeth, II, as a person herself, regardless of their feelings towards the monarchy necessarily. It's Queen Elizabeth II, they hold her in such high regard. And is that what you were hearing back from people as well, too? Because that's what we kept hearing time and time again.
I think there's been a big difference in the last 50 years that's been established between the monarchy and then the Queen. And I think what will be interesting in the next year and the next months is how the Queen, who has assumed the role of the monarchy, how the monarchy and King Charles moves from that. But my parents, my dad was born in 1957, my uncle was born in 1955, British Columbia, and they've been, the Queen has been the Queen their entire life. And I think it's a big stepping stone in anyone's life that there's been one constant presence in the world for 70 years, which is certainly most of the population of the world. And this is the first days in the next era.
Harris, thanks so much for talking
to us. My pleasure.
Appreciate you. He had his Blue Jays hat on and he found us in the crowd, said, "Oh, I know you guys are from Toronto." Toronto. Omar, so that's, again, we've got some Canadian content here as we talk to more people, Canadians and otherwise, about gathering here at Trafalgar Square as we continue to watch these remarkable pictures.
Canadians and people from around the world to say a final goodbye. Let's go to CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin now, who is at Lambeth Bridge, where some people were actually camping out overnight, Jen, in tents, and they've been told to remove their tents. We know that it was quite a soggy night, quite different from what it is today. What are people telling you?
It was indeed. Yeah, it was indeed a really quite a soggy night there at Lambeth, where people had been waiting for hours and hours and hours. And I spoke to many people there who were saying that, they wanted to be there and spend those hours waiting, though it was hard for them. I spoke to people, one person who was the bodyguard to the Queen some time ago who felt it was a duty to be there, another person who was a serviceman who said he wanted to be there also. And what was a remarkable scene is when we were there at a certain moment, the Archbishop of Canterbury came to talk, came to greet the people who were standing in that lineup, and everybody just kind of held their breath in that one moment to look at him and went to talk to him, and he thanked the crowds there in person, telling them thank you for being here, thank you for spending the time, thank you for honoring the Queen. So it was quite a moment here, and I've actually moved a little bit, Omar. There, I tricked you a little because I have moved a little bit away from Lambeth Bridge. I'm in this area here, which is a bit of a privileged area, I would say, because it's been blocked off, but the people who live in the area nearby here or who worked in the buildings nearby are trying now. They feel they might be able to get a good glimpse at the procession. So it's a little bit of a packed area here, but people are waiting for that moment. And Issa too is now with me. Tell me why you've come here. I know you're watching. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah, I don't want to miss nothing. I don't want to miss. She was like a mother. I just fell in love with her. I'm from Africa. I'm from Sierra Leone. Since I was back home, the Queen, she was everything to us. So I'm used to the Queen. Being here for 26 years, I can't ask for any more. She was brilliant, she's beautiful. I'm gonna miss her so much.
Now you've come here, you're on your tippy toes every 2 seconds.
Yes.
What do you expect when she comes by?
I just expect to see at least a little bit of glimpse. That's fine for me, because whole night, last night I was in Buckingham Palace, so I had a good view of her last night. But today I felt like I have to be here. I just want to pay my respects. I have to be here.
You were at Buckingham Palace. You have seen her, but you don't want to.
It's not enough. It's not enough for me. I want to be here every day until Monday.
Thank you very much, Issa. So as I say, the coffin should be arriving here, I'm told, in a couple of minutes at most. And so there's that anticipation and that waiting for that exhale, as Anne-Marie has so well described over there closer to the start of the route. So people here waiting for that moment, Omar.
Geneviève, thank you. I just want to give our viewers now a few moments to reflect on this profoundly powerful moment in history as the Queen's coffin arrives to Westminster Hall in about 4 minutes' time. extraordinary precision, as you can see. The drums are keeping careful time. They've timed this at 75 steps per minute. And the arrival time is 3 o'clock to Westminster Hall. And every minute, in fact, you may be able to hear that in the background, is a toll from Big Ben, the iconic Big Ben. And their guns are being fired at Hyde Park every minute. Let's go now to CTV's John Venevali-Rao. Obviously, thousands of people have gathered along the procession route, but other people are trying to take this in other ways, John.
Yes, they're gathered here in Hyde Park, where they've set up these giant screens to watch the procession. It's been incredible, Omar, to see thousands of people in this park watching those screens in complete silence. No one is saying anything. They're just simply staring at those screens. We've seen people wiping tears from their eyes and just really wanting to honor and pay their respects to the Queen and taking in this moment. You hear those guns from Hyde Park, the sound of them rolling across the greens here. It's really incredible and an emotional time for everybody to be here and to witness this.
You can see that emotion, you can see that grief. You can also see a certain amount of pride, Afia, can't you, on the faces of the people?
Absolutely. I think there's a huge sense of pride in seeing our military on display like this, a huge sense of pride in the people around them. You know, people seeing the amount of people that have come out, pride in London looking so glorious in a day like today. You know, and a real sense of just people being so glad that they're able to pay their respects, that they're able to be such and be part of such a moment in time, a moment in history. It's an incredible display, and like a lot of people who your correspondents have been talking to, very emotional. It is very emotional. For me, it's the music, it's seeing the military display, it's seeing the coffin, it's seeing the family process behind it, it's hearing the gunfire every minute and Big Ben tolling as well. It's all so special.
Hugo, you've spent some time with the royal family. Anne-Marie said something quite beautiful. She said there is this spontaneous display of emotion for a woman that people didn't even really know.
Well, they didn't know her, but they certainly knew exactly who she was and that she was a big part of our national life for such a very, very long time. She was very much in people's psyche, in their heads, if you like. And I think, particularly since the Queen Mother died, she sort of became, in that moment, in a way, the matriarch of the family. And I think she's really the affection of love of the nation has really been directed towards her. And in the last few years, of course, you know, huge sympathy at the death of her husband, Prince Philip, and the fact that, you know, that she began to be in slightly failing health and couldn't take part in some of the things that she normally did, which was sad. We missed her very much. It was lovely when she did appear, and she did from time to time. But then also, of course, we were able to see her adopting the wonderful process of Zoom, which meant that she could act in a different way while staying in Windsor Castle, and that was lovely as well.
It's never easy talking about somebody's passing or their death, but in some ways, her life was quite poetic. The fact that she was able to reach these significant milestones in her life.
Yes. And she talked to a friend of hers who was about the same age, and they were discussing dying, and she said to her, you know, it's all right for you. I have to do it so very publicly, you know, but in a sense she has to share all this. And I suppose what I really mean is so did the royal family. I mean, they cannot grieve privately alone. They know that the Queen belonged as much to the nation as she did to them.
We know that the Queen Consort Camilla, Kate and Meghan have just arrived at Westminster. And so has that procession arrived. at Westminster.
Yes, we saw it pass through Horse Guards along Whitehall, past the Cenotaph, of course, which is such a feature of the Remembrance Day parade, when for many, many years the Queen laid her wreath at the Cenotaph. And now she's in the grounds of the Palace of Westminster, about to go into Westminster Hall.
See. Barrow party. 6 paces outwards. March. Stand still. Barrow party, prepare to turn. Prepare to raise. Raise. Barrow party, inwards. Turn. Barrow party, prepare to turn. Turn. Barrow party, slow. March.
pallbearers, 5 on each side, found from the service equerries to the Queen, both serving and former, as the choir of Westminster Abbey and the choir of His Majesty's Chapel Royal, St. James's Palace, sing the song.